Most nonprofits assume $1 million plus organizations are doing something totally different. They're layering on strategies that just don't work or would be impossible for organizations with an annual budget under $1 million. More staff, more marketing, more agencies, more support, more team, more infrastructure. Definitely a kick ass board, right? But when you actually look at how many of them raise unrestricted money, especially at scale, at that volume, you see something surprising. They're not just doing bigger things, they're not doing other strategies that wouldn't work for your organization. They're doing things faster. $1 million plus organizations run easily 5 to 10x more fundraising campaigns a year than smaller organizations. I am not saying more galas, more golf outings, more events, more raffles, more 5Ks. No, I'm saying more campaigns, more short, focused online fundraisers. That means sometimes we're running campaigns from the desk, the kitchen table, and definitely they're strong laptop fundraisers. So high growth nonprofits don't run bigger fundraisers, they're running them more often. You see where I'm going with this? They are sprinting more often. So most organizations structure their year around grant cycles, a signature gala or spring event, year-end giving, right? We go full court for those last 2 months of the year. Everything revolves around those few central moments. They're big, right? So the assumption is that fundraising has to be traditional, comfortable, what we know, what we've always done, big, slow to plan, complicated, right? There's all of this effort put into a handful of signature events or signature campaigns. But that assumption is exactly what slows organizations down. $1 million plus organizations don't rely on a single or handful of moments. In fact, they're creating campaign rhythms. That's what we're going to dig in today, is these short bursts, these short sprint campaigns that can change the trajectory of your funding growth. Now, executive directors, fundraisers, and your board may often assume, hey, we can't do that because we don't have a big enough team. We would need more staff, more marketers, a major gifts officer, somebody in charge of events, somebody in charge of just digital, a social media team, more capacity to do all of this, to raise more. But what's actually happening is different. Many high growth organizations are just using technology to speed up their funding. They're using modern campaign systems. And that's why I created this concept of sprints. That's why I created the entire sprint method, because they understand something critical, which is if you want more donors in your pipeline, and I know you do, you need more opportunities for people to give. So I want you to think about your favorite retailer, the one that you're like, you know what, whenever I shop online there or whenever I go in person, like I always see so many things I want to buy. Maybe I come for one thing, I buy 5 things. Like think of your go-to place. So what am I going to think of? Right now, I'm just going to think of Anthropologie. So I'm going to think about them. So whether I'm shopping in person or online, can you imagine if Anthropologie only reached out to me and only ran a handful, 3 signature sales promotions a year? They're like, Christina, it's time to shop for the holidays. It's time to shop for spring, and then 1 sale a year. They would not get my business. I would forget about them. But instead, they're telling me about a February edit or a summer collection or when swimwear drops or the latest home decor, right? They're thinking about different ways they can target different segments of their audiences. And you can too. And you could do this with a small team. So if you want more donors in your pipeline, you need more opportunities for them to give. And the internet, the World Wide Web, makes that so easy and scalable because you don't need a ballroom. You don't need an event planner. You do not, hear me on this, need a 6-month planning cycle. Here's what you need. Ready? A laptop, a clear message, a strong donation tool, a focused campaign. Boom, you've got a sprint. We walk you through the entire system inside my program, the Sprint Method, literally step by step. S through T, sprint is an acronym, and we spell it out for you inside that. It doesn't have to scale. Your fundraising doesn't have to scale because of staff size. It doesn't have to scale because you suddenly got a budget to run a second event, or because you introduced a comedy night or a raffle, or you got a windfall, a once in a lifetime windfall from a grant funder. No, It can scale because you have a repeatable system to raise 5 figures in every single fundraiser. So the big mistake I see is why I wanted to record this episode is this idea that organizing fundraising around slow structures is the key because that's the old playbook. Like that's tried and true, air quotes. Y'all, that does not work anymore, right? I've never been more, I want the type of consumer that's like, I expect this now quickly. Have you ever ordered something and I recently ordered, tangent, y'all. I recently ordered a small piece of furniture for my office, like a little filing office storage piece. I ordered it over the holidays and I didn't look closely. I just assumed it would come in the next week-ish, right? Because most direct to consumer websites are that way, right? I knew that it wasn't like made to order or anything like that. So I just assumed it would come in the next week-ish, maybe 2 weeks at the most. This thing took 3 months to arrive. I recently just received it. And it was such a wild experience because as a consumer, I have now been trained. Like, sure, there are some vendors who would tell you ahead of time, hey, this is back ordered. You're not going to get it for a while. But as a consumer, I've been trained. I'm going to get that pretty quick. Right. And so now that was such a bizarre, like out of left field customer service experience that if I need another shelf or a piece of furniture, I would not go back to that company because they kept just coming back being like, yeah, it's getting, it's en route or something like that. And I am a consumer just like you, and consumers are donors. Donors are consumers. So same thing goes here. We expect things quicker, right? We don't want just one in-person event or one year-end fundraiser to contribute to your organization. We want lots of different opportunities to build trust with your organization, to support your cause, maybe to support a specific program, maybe to be drawn in by monthly giving. And you can't do that if you're narrowing in and saying, listen, we're only going to fundraise a handful of times each year, and that's that. So those things have a place, the grant cycles, the in-person events, the fundraisers, the big events that take months to plan. But when they become the backbone of your strategy, your organization gets stuck waiting for funding, waiting for the grant decision, waiting for the event, for the like expenses to clear, the net profit to show up, right? Waiting for the perfect moment. Meanwhile, organizations that work with me are doing something different. What are they doing? They're experimenting. They're running these sprint campaigns, 3, 7, 10-day campaigns, quick pops, testing messaging, inviting donors in more often. And I'm excited to share with you what that's created for them. They are collapsing timelines. They are raising more in a shorter period of time, 2 weeks, 30 days, than they have raised all quarter or sometimes all year. The problem isn't that nonprofits ask too often. The problem is actually that they wait too long. So the advantage here is speed. Speed is the fundraising advantage. And when our clients join the sprint method, they launch their first campaign oftentimes in less than 2 weeks. How long does it take to write a grant? How long does it take to hear back from the funder? How much time are you spending doing that, planning the big event, the 5K? Sprint campaigns let you move faster, test ideas faster. You get to test. Are we ready to put our recurring giving program forward? Are we ready to fundraise with this particular story in mind? Are we ready to build up this concept, this idea, and introduce it to the world? You get to test those ideas. Are our donors responding to this story? Ooh, maybe not. Let's run it this way instead. You have that speed, and that speed creates the momentum, not the burnout cycle that we see so often in this sector. So that momentum raises money so much faster than perfection, than waiting. So let's look at some of our sprint client examples. Megan from the Live Music Project. She came to me and she had tried lots of different things. As a solo executive director without a team, she came in, she ran her sprint campaign, a focused campaign that rallied donors around a clear moment, a clear message, and exceeded expectations. She raised 109% of her goal, 5+ figures, right? So instead of relying on some outdated framework that wasn't working or a little bit of this, a little bit of that, she came in and locked in a very short period of time, her biggest online fundraiser yet. And then there's Sharing Hope Africa. They came to me ready to spend a lot of money putting on a gala, putting on a traditional fundraising event, because that's what they were told. That's the way to fundraise. They decided instead of spending multiple five figures on running an event, let's use a campaign-based system. They ran their first sprint campaign. It was a huge success. They went on to run multiple sprint campaigns. I remember one where they were like, Christina, we hit our goal within the first 5 minutes of the event. So now they have a repeatable system. They're bringing in recurring donors. They're able to fully fund out their program for the full year. Like head on the pillow, sleeping at night, knowing this program is fully funded. Like that's the power of a focused campaign. That focus creates momentum. That focus invigorates your board. That focus invigorates your new donors. It really becomes this sort of like a tipping point, this positive tipping point where suddenly your organization is top of mind for a lot of donors and a lot of donor prospects in a way that you had dreamed of, but hadn't quite worked before. The campaign action and the sprint system does exactly this, right? It's not the size of the campaign that creates the results, the number of gala tables or tickets sold, right? It's the support and the system that we teach inside Sprint. So if you're thinking, listen, this sounds good and all, but I can't run more campaigns. I'm already doing so much. This is not about doing more, right? So instead of spending 4-6 months planning one big make or break event, I remember when another executive director told me, we basically are funded by this one big event we do each year. And they had a huge dip in revenue one year. And I said to her, what happened? What happened on that year? Like hundreds of thousands of dollars dip. And she said, well, we weren't able to put on the event. We couldn't do the event that year. There was an illness. There was a few other factors. They couldn't put on the event. Like that is make or break. That is not a scalable way for your organization to grow, right? So instead of being overwhelmed about like, oh, I can't do more campaigns, I want you to think about, this isn't about doing more. This is about reallocating your time. So instead of months and months of planning, talking to caterers, how many of y'all are trying to solicit volunteers for your fun run, for your raffle, for your bingo night, right? Like you're like, please, will you help me with volunteer check-in? I need some help, right? Your auction. Instead of all of that, you're reallocating all of that time and you're creating these focused short bursts of fundraising campaigns throughout the year. It's so much easier. It is so much easier. And sometimes I hear, our audience is too small. Like we can't fundraise online significantly because we don't really have a large group of donors online. And I say to you, that's exactly why these campaigns matter. The future of fundraising is here. It is online. It is from your laptop. And it is time for you to open your prospect pool of donors online because you can only physically knock on doors, phone call, and run so many events in a year. You can only have so many golf outings and bingo nights in a year. The future is online. Okay. It is online. That is foundational. So those campaigns create moments where shorter supporters can share your vision. My favorite part about sprints is how many new donors come in through a sprint campaign. So you can have, let's look at Megan. Megan had 135 donors come in through one of her sprint campaigns. Within that 135, oftentimes we'll see over 50 new donors coming in. It's such a good pipeline for you to invite in new people to your audience versus, again, begging that volunteer, begging that board member to buy a ticket to your gala table and then invite 9 neighbors who aren't really aligned with your cause. So if your audience is small, the answer isn't fewer campaigns. That answer isn't fewer make or break it campaigns. It's actually better, shorter ones. Okay. And if you're thinking, we tried this before, we tried it doesn't work for us, we email all the time, we tried email fundraising, we tried social media, I'll actually dig deeper and see, yes, you sent some emails, you shared a donation link, you put some social posts out there. That is not a sprint campaign. That is not it. So don't tell yourself we've tried this because you've set up an online donation page. Our sprint campaigns weave in structure, timing, urgency, high converting language that converts and connects donors to your cause. So when organizations actually use this structure, that's when everything starts to click differently. As I'm recording this, I'm looking out the window and I'm looking at like the beginning of spring blooms. And I'm thinking about how many of us have been like, listen, I'm not a good gardener. I've tried gardening. Everything I buy just dies. right? And you look a little closer and you're like, yeah, I could go to bat. I could say, listen, I went, gotten the flowers, I dug the hole, I added the water, and none of them ever survived. Okay, let's look a little closer. Was this a full sun plant that you planted in the shade? Was the dirt like hard Georgia clay and you actually need something that's like a softer soil for this plant to survive? Do you need to fertilize? Did you water once a week and expect that that would be enough? Guilty, right? It doesn't mean that you can't do this. It just means there were a couple things in the way of you hitting your goal. That's why I love group coaching so much, is I can go in and triage it. I can go, ooh, there was just a clay issue, or ooh, it was a little acidic, or ooh, we were planting a full sun plant in the shade. I've done that many times, right? So it can be just something as simple as triaging your last campaign to make sure that your next campaign converts. So inside the sprint method, which opens up for enrollment very, very soon, nonprofits learn how to plan and launch focused campaigns quickly. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation is if your organization is not a new organization, if your organization has been around for 20 years, but maybe you haven't figured out how to transition from the gala or from the grant or from whatever your traditional fundraising engine is, and you know you want a modern way to fundraise from your laptop, you need to join Sprint. Do not tell yourself, well, we are established, well, we have a 20-year track record. But listen, if we are treading water and not moving forward, you may need to join the sprint method. The easiest thing you can do is you can always reach out to me. You can always send me an email or reach out to me on LinkedIn, and we can talk about where you fit, where you would be best served in my programs. Many people who join the sprint will launch their first campaign in less than 2 weeks. It is that easy. They're not waiting for perfect conditions. They're testing, they're iterating, they're learning, they're building that momentum, they're waking up their board. And that rhythm is what allows organizations to grow revenue quickly collapsing those timelines. So you do not have to become a $1 million nonprofit first. And in fact, $1 million organizations know that the future is online fundraising, and that they can have an arm that is grants, and they can have an arm that are a couple of handful of signature events. But when they want to bring in sustainable funding, when they want to bring in recurring monthly donors, they're gonna do it online first. That's the future. So they're adapting that same rhythm that you can adapt to for your organization, that speed, that experimentation, that campaign momentum. The organizations that grow fastest aren't the ones with the biggest teams. Please don't tell yourself that. They're the ones that move first. They're the ones that are willing to sunset or pause the other thing to go all in on the thing that is low lift, high impact. If you want to learn more about how to run these campaigns, that's what we build inside the Sprint Method. You can go to splendidcourses.com/10K to sign up for our free webinar, where I will show you the 10K blueprint to raise 5 figures or more in your next campaign. All right, I'll see you next time.